Hey guys, it's me, your Rolling MC, and welcome to another episode of Talk Horror to Me. So, today I have a special guest. It's my best horror friend in the whole wide world, Melissa.
I'm great. I'm glad to get to see your beautiful face.
So, guys, I met Melissa through her aunt Tanya. It was Tanya
Yeah.
because we worked out together online. And then
Mhm.
I met Melissa's mom, Lisa, physically in San Antonio. And that was such a great experience. Your mom is so sweet. And so Melissa and I have been friends on Facebook for quite a while. We're online friends, but we're definitely horror, very strong horror friends. And I asked her to come on the show because she has met some horror icons, and I want you to just kind of tell people how you got involved. So please introduce yourself for me real quick, Melissa.
Hi, I'm Melissa, and I got started with horror, I guess, with my uncle Gary. He loved horror movies. He loved sci-fi and fantasy. So I think the first movie I saw that scared me, Dark Crystal. Dark Crystal.
Really?
I was probably 7 when I saw it, and I loved it though. I loved the thrill of getting scared. So
Yes,
that to
yes,
me was
yes,
my first foray into horror.
yes, yes.
But yeah,
I started, oh my gosh, I say this all the time because I know people are like, oh my God, every time I say it. But my mom took me to a horror movie at 4 years old at a drive-in. We had a Volkswagen bus. You remember those back in the 70s?
sure thing.
Yeah. And so it was Dracula with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. And I think I remember something had to do with Frankenstein. Anyway, the thing of it is, what got to me was when they took Frankenstein, or the man that they were creating Frankenstein,
Mhm.
his skull off. And I saw the brain pulsating. It's what is it? Hammerstein? Isn't it the director?
Hammer, hammer
Yeah,
horror.
Horror. So that's telling my age, and that's how far back. And I remember that. I still remember that to this very day. And I was 4 years old. And I remember what got to me is that I saw the blood pulsating out of the brain, and that confused me as to why that was happening. Why did they take his head off?
Hmm.
So I could not go to sleep. I had all these little stuffed animals that were supposed to keep me safe. They were not keeping me safe. My mom said she would never take me to another horror movie. Yeah.
It's a thrill. It's a thrill. It's an innocent one. And, I just think it's fun. I liked the thrill of it. It was the danger without the real danger.
Yes, yes, that's exactly true. I'm glad you said that because a lot of people ask me, how do I find that entertaining? I think it's the thrill without not having to worry about actually being stalked or being hurt or being, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So,
I do.
and I think it's educational too because somebody mess with me, I already know. I got so many things.
Girl.
So many ideas. So tell me a little bit more about you meeting these horror icons because I have seen your posts. I have seen some of the ones that you met. How did all that transpire?
So, I had heard of horror conventions, but the first thing I actually went to was down in Chicago. I had heard about an all-night drive-in movie marathon of horror movies, and they had it, I think, and it was in September. But
Hmm.
mom and I just talked to her. I told her, I go, we have to go. I just have to. She goes, you're going to drive 5 hours to go to a drive-in? And I'm like, I am, because it sounds fun as heck. And it's how I found out about the people who own that drive-in. Um, they also run a convention called Flashback Weekend. So I ended up going to their convention after doing the drive-in, but it was so much fun. We
Oh
got to
yeah.
watch Nightmare on Elm Street. I believe we got to see Friday the 13th Part 2. Uh, yeah, and we also got to see The Evil Dead, which was
Oh yeah.
awesome.
Yes.
And they did prizes all night, and I actually won an autographed picture of Robert Englund, and I was
Oh,
so
wow.
excited. And that just kind of filled my love of being around people who loved horror movies, not just
Hmm.
an insular thing. So I was
Hmm.
like, I found out they had run a convention. I'm like, we're going to that next. So the following year, we ended up doing our first flashback weekend, and I actually got to meet George Romero.
Oh my,
He,
you met George Romero?
I did. I actually met him, and I met Barbara and Judith O'Dea, and I got to meet Russ
Oh,
Striner, who played her brother.
yes.
So, and he did, I do not have it anymore, and I'm so sad, but he did a voice recording for me. They're coming to
Oh,
get you, Barbara.
Barbara, they're coming to
It
get
was
you.
awesome. But like George Romero was so down to earth, friendly, take pictures with you. But I
Oh,
will, and so yeah, I got to meet a lot of the cast from that movie. And it just was so fun. You get to meet really cool people. You got autographs. You got Q&As,
yeah.
um, all the merchandise
Oh, oh,
you
I
get
bet.
to
Oh, I
buy.
bet.
And, you know, when I started the conventions, it was so long, it's probably 15 years was my first
Oh,
one.
wow. Okay.
But yeah, what I loved was you could, at that time, now you can't, but at that time, people could make copies of movies that didn't have a US release.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
got a ton of pirated movies, girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
All the
Yes.
stuff I
Lucky
wanted to
you.
see, you
Lucky
couldn't get
you.
here, like Meet the Feebles. I don't know if you've ever seen Meet the Feebles, but girlfriend,
No,
that is a trip.
no, I
But
haven't. You're so lucky. I know you met one of my favorite horror icons, Sid, and everybody
I did.
said he was so opposite of what he played in the movies with Rob Zombie.
He's super chill. I remember, like, we were walking around the convention floor because this one I went to with my husband, and him and Bill Moseley were both there, so I got both their autographs. But
Oh,
Sid was like, they had Insane Clown Posse was there,
oh,
and they're
insane! Oh,
thumping their music all over, and
oh
he's
yeah,
just sitting there
ICP.
doing this,
Yes,
just
it's
so
classic.
getting into the music. I thought
Oh
it was
yes,
so
I
funny.
love it.
Yeah, he was a super chill guy. Very,
Yes,
very
yes.
down to earth.
Yeah,
Very
Lucky
happy
Soul.
to meet
Yeah,
all his fans.
yeah. So I noticed in the background there you have several collections. So do you know how many horror movies that you have?
Currently I'm around 1,500.
Melissa.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, not
Oh,
all of them are horror, but yeah, a good
yeah.
chunk of them are horror because that's what I love. So,
Oh,
movies,
my.
books, collectibles, girl, if I could, I'd show you. Yeah, I got all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it's so funny. It's so funny. When I first met you, when you first meet horror people, you never know how true horror they are. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But you nailed every single thing that I had brought up and mentioned. I was like, oh my gosh, she knows so much more than I do. I can learn from her. Like, you're my horror sensei.
Uh, Well, there's a
You
lot of
didn't know that
fun
you
to
had
be
that
had
much.
out there, and to be honest, you know, I love a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
I will say I loved your mentioning of Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee because some of my favorite movies to watch that I still break out every single year for Halloween, Amicus. Now,
Oh.
you know Hammer, but
Mhm.
Amicus
Yeah.
did a Tales from the Crypt,
Yep.
Vault of
Mhm.
Horror, Torture
Yep.
Garden.
Yep.
So those are some of my favorites to
Mhm.
watch. I
Yeah.
watch them every single year.
I'm old school, so when September rolls around, I'm getting my stuff ready. I watch horror movies all through the year, and I know it sounds crazy that people think that I watch those for comfort, but they really have gotten me through a lot of different things. I know that don't make no sense to people, but they really have. And I just watch it. I watch it for what, just literally for comfort. But anyways, I always start with the classics. And I start
Hmm.
with Bella and Lon Chaney and Nosferatu. Like I always start with the silent movies and move my way up through the years. And I'm going to tell you, I think what I like the most about Hammer, with Peter Cushing is the colors, the
Hmm.
bold colors that he put into the movies that when you're watching it, it just really captures you. It captures you. It was so artistic. You know what I mean? So even though,
Sure.
Christopher Lee was taking her out, right? It was so dramatically done. And they did those dramatic pause when the women, they,
Hmm.
whatever it was they were going through, that pause would come in. And it's so crazy because nowadays you don't see all that as much. Every
Correct.
now, like the remake of It, you saw that. You saw the
Yeah.
bold colors. Not
Hmm.
and I saw that a lot where they say, you know, you could tell that something was happening because the colors would change in the storyline, right? So you
Yeah.
knew that. And I like that kind of stuff. It made you
Hmm.
feel when they were in the dark in that house and all these crazy things were coming up, you felt that. You knew when it started to get dark, you knew something was about to happen and gave you that, The Exorcist by far is still in my Exorcist is still in my top five. I Every time I watch it, from the time that I watched it when I was small to right now, I still get that same feeling like, oh my God. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Especially those certain scenes where you're like, oh my God, you know? So I think
Hmm.
those movies that I continue watch over and over again, they still have that same effect on me like The Exorcist does. Do you have
Sure.
a favorite scary movie?
Well, it's always a hard question because it can change and it can go back to that one. But my all-time favorite's always going to be Nightmare on Elm Street.
You
I
Freddy
just
Krueger
love
fan.
the character of
Yeah,
Freddy Krueger.
yeah.
The original is still creepy. It has
Hmm.
the sense of humor, but it's not the overboard sense of humor like they brought out in the later films. So
Yeah,
it still has that little bit of sense of dread to it.
yeah.
But yeah, it's a comfort movie for me. So
Yeah.
I break that one out a lot. And I would say if I had to pick a number two, it's probably going to be Trick or Treat. I just
Oh,
love the whole
yeah,
presentation of that
yeah,
movie. It's
yeah.
the absolute if I'm gonna pick a number 1 for Halloween movies,
Mm-hmm.
aside from the original Halloween, Trick or Treat is,
Trick or
like, at
treat.
the top of my list. They just
Yeah,
everything about it was perfect.
yeah.
It really gets you in the mood for the holiday.
It
I
absolutely
would have
does.
loved to live in that village,
Yeah.
you know? I would have been like, "Please take me there."
I don't know if I want to live in a dream with Freddie, but I could do Trick or Treat, and I probably could do Haddonfield. I probably could
Yeah.
do the Michael Myers thing. But it's so funny. I'm glad you said that because there's times that I put myself in those places and go, well, what would I really done? You know what I'm saying? I think
Mhm.
about that sometimes. The Exorcist, I probably would have froze. I think I would have froze because I probably wouldn't understand what was happening to the child. Does that
For
make
real.
sense? And I know
I do.
exorcism is just a lot of people think it is a taboo, but it's a real thing. So I don't really know reality wise, if that was really in my face, I don't think I would comprehend what was happening to the child, right? You know what I'm saying? I would
Yeah.
probably take the child to the hospital, like what the mom did. But
Mhm.
Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger and Jason, first of all, I'm running away from Jason. He's not going to catch me, first of all. Second of
Yeah.
all, I don't know if I could trust myself to wake up to get away from Freddy, right? Because when you sleep, you sleep. And
Yes.
Michael Myers, I'm not going to babysit no kids anyway. I'm not a babysitter.
Yeah, I mean, out of the 3, I probably wouldn't want Freddy either. You know, he would be my least favorite one because you really can't run anywhere. You can't.
You
And
can't, you
he
are
takes
definitely,
such sadistic pleasure in hurting his victims, you know? It's like at least with Michael and Freddy, it's like one big stab and you're done.
and you're done.
Freddy
You're
likes to
done.
torture. He's like a cat with a mouth. Yep.
So I asked
But
this
maybe that's why
question.
I enjoy it because he's so creative.
He's so creative. I asked this question to my first episode people that I had on there, Nyland and Jordan. When, and I'm going to ask this question to you. When do you think a franchise should stop? And so we were talking about Friday the 13th. Oh, hey, kitty cat. We were talking about Friday the 13th, and it got to the wayside. It kind of went off, and then they switched hands. So then it became
Hmm.
the Jason series, right? So I was like, when does a friend? It's okay. The cat's like, I want to be on camera.
Right.
So when does a franchise stop? And I said when we stop buying tickets. But when do you think a franchise should stop? Because there's been remakes after remakes after remakes on several different things.
Um, Honestly, I will probably watch most stuff, but if I'm gonna jokingly say it, when they go to space. As they go to space, like then I'm like, come on, man, come up with a better plot line.
You feel the same way. Well, it's like, why? My son who was on the show, he said, why would you put Jason in space? He's a grounded character. And I was like, I didn't watch that bullshit. That was crazy. I wasn't going to watch it. So I'm
You
with
know
you on that.
what?
I
It
think
kind of has a special place in my heart as like the most terrible. So every once in a while, you got to break it out, but I still like, yeah, it's not my favorite. That's not
so.
my favorite.
What would you consider as far as a horror movie the most terrible one that just like you had to turn it off?
Oh, um, honestly, I know a lot of people are gonna hate me for this, but that Hereditary,
No.
I'm not an art house horror film fan. I hate them. I
Oh,
hate them. I know some
Melissa,
people love that like stuff, but I can't stand that movie.
Melissa, do not feel bad. I have banned that movie. That movie cannot be played in my house. That movie cannot come in my house. I went to go see that movie by myself and it shook me. It shook me so bad that I had to call my son and tell him that I was shook. And then I went to the bookstore to read some comic books so I could calm myself down because that's how bad that movie affected me. You know it affected me because I won't allow it to be played in my house. I can't do that movie
Right.
again. Oh my God. I,
Yeah, it's that particular part of the horror genre that I just never
Mhm.
stuck with me. I don't like movies that take like the entire movie to get anywhere. Like that movie has disturbing imagery for sure,
For
but
sure.
it's slow. And I don't really care for slow. And maybe I'm just a little like, I grew up in the 80s on slasher films. So that's
Yep.
like action, boom, 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 right from the beginning. You get a little
Yeah.
storyline, you're having fun. They're fun. They're supposed to be
Yeah.
fun. So if
Yeah.
they're a little bit, it's the same way I feel about torture porn,
Oh,
not a
yeah. Yeah.
huge fan. When they
Yeah.
have like, I really hate like things like Last House on the Left,
Uh-uh.
even though I absolutely respect the movie. It's totally
It
messed up, but that's
is.
the stuff that sticks in you,
Yeah.
like you
I
don't
sit
sleep
on your
for
grave.
days after watching that.
Yeah.
I can't,
Another one
I
is I
sit on
sit
your
on your
grave.
grave. I can't do it. I
Like,
won't do it. Mm-mm.
no,
I
and I
can't do
watched
that.
it once, and girl, I got a funny story to tell you. I had heard of I Spit on Your Grave, and I was at a Blockbuster with mom, and we rented it, and we had no idea what this movie was about. We're
Oh
both sitting there watching it,
my.
like, can we fast forward through this part, please? It's
Oh
like next
my.
time we're gonna read reviews about movies before we. I just thought it was hilarious. It's like, but that's the kind of movie that I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, it's too real, too real.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
think.
that. The Strangers. Oh,
Yeah.
I hate that
Oh,
movie. I hate it, but
stranger. Mhm.
it's terrifying. But that's
Mhm.
why I hate it. Like, and I don't watch it. I don't watch it on repeat because I live in the woods, girlfriend. Like the idea of strangers just showing up at your house and like, why are you doing this to me? Because you were home. It's so creepy. That's
I,
my worst nightmare.
I'm with you on that. The psychological killers and the ones that mess with your brain are like Hereditary that left a burnt image in my brain. I
Mhm.
cannot, even when I scroll on different apps and that picture pops up, I can't. It just triggers all over again because of what I saw, even toward the end. It was a definitely slow burn. It was
Mhm.
definitely a slow burn. So before we wrap up, I have a question to ask you about this one. What did you think? My God, this is awful. What did you think about Human Centipede? That was another one I couldn't do.
Uh, You know, I just thought it was trash. To be completely honest, it was trashy. It was, I guess there's a
Hmm.
certain, you know,
Sickos.
group of people that love that kind of thing. But if you come up to me and I ask you, or what are your favorite movies, and either the Human Centipede or Serbian movie come into the,
Mhm.
then yeah, I don't really want to be friends with like, those are not the best movies I've ever seen.
And they
They're
made
like
three of them.
terrible. And
Think about
Serbian film, girl, I didn't sleep for a week after watching that. And I
which
tell
one
people literally keep it at arm's length. It was terrible. And it
it
was
was.
terrible in the way that, like, I mean, it was shot really well. There's nothing wrong with that. But
Yeah.
the content is not anything I would tell people to watch,
Yeah.
Terrible.
I watched that, Melissa, in the middle of the day. My husband came home, brought me lunch because I said, I'm hungry, whatever. I'm watching this horror movie. And it was in the middle of the day and he brought me home lunch. I just want you to know, and I have watched probably every slasher movie, guts going in, all that, eating my food, not thinking anything about it. I tried to eat my lunch and got sick. I couldn't do it because of what I was watching on TV. I had to turn it off. I was like, it was too much. It was too much. I couldn't do it.
Somebody
I
told
made
me
fun
it
of
was
it, but
crazy.
I couldn't do it. Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
somebody told me it was crazy. I bought myself a copy of it off of Amazon because you couldn't. I'm in Wisconsin, girl. It's like you're not
Yeah.
buying a copy of that at your local Walmart.
I,
And I got it and I watched it and I sold it the next day. Like, I don't even want this movie in my collection. It's freaking awful. It's awful. It's so disturbing that I
it's
didn't
so
sleep for a
disturbing.
week.
It's
It
so
just was in my head.
I was like,
I
you
don't
know
like this
what?
at all.
Somebody wrote a script for that.
I know. And you know what? The director killed himself. So I'm not,
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. You are
he
correct.
did. And
Yeah.
I'm not, and I'm sure he had a lot of issues beforehand, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, he had issues because
You
he
know he
killed
had
himself,
issues. That damn movie tells it all.
I
That was
know.
crazy.
And
That was
it's,
so crazy. All right.
ugh,
Well,
yeah,
I
I don't
appreciate
care
you
for that.
taking the time to be on the show. I'm so happy to see you and talk to you face to face, even though we're online. Please give my love to all your family. This has been great, Melissa. Thank you.
No, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, guys, that is it for me and for Melissa. Tune in next week. Next week, guys, we're going back to Hitting the Streets podcast. Talk horror for me. This is the last episode, and I want to thank everybody for being on the show. And once again, Melissa, thank you so much.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye now.